Example 3, even though you see a fraction here, I still urge you to pause the video and try this one on your own. 1a, we write a y instead of the f of x. 1b, we interchange x and y, so every time we see a y, we put an x. Every time we see an x, we put a y. And then we're going to be solving this equation for y, just like we did in the other ones. And when we have a fraction, we want to undo that fraction by multiplying here, in this case by 3, because when we multiply both sides by 3, the fraction goes away, or the denominator gets canceled, and so on the right side we get y plus 4, and on the left side of the equal sign we get 3x. And we know we subtract 4 from both sides, and after doing that we've got our y, and at this step we can, well, let's go ahead and write that out. Y equals 3x minus 4, and we say therefore f inverse of x is equal to 3x minus 4. So I paused the video there and switched the papers on you, so go ahead and get this paper out. Pause the video if you have to, but I'm going to go ahead and keep going. So in this video we're going to be looking at finding, or I guess the rest of this video, we're going to look at finding the graph of a function and then seeing how the graph of the inverse looks in relation to the function itself. So there are many different ways to do this. We know, we're just going to go ahead and graph this function here, y equals 2x plus 8. We know that y equals mx plus b, just a quick review of graphing, that m is the slope, so we know that the slope is 2, and we like to write the slope as a fraction, so we'll write 2 as 2 over 1. And then we know that the number right here that comes after the 2x plus 8, that's the y-intercept. And so we know the y-intercept is 8. So when we know the y-intercept and we know the slope, we can just go ahead and plot the y-intercept and use the slope to come up with another point. And so since the slope is 2, we go up 2 and over 1. And I like to have other points too, but so I can draw my line nice and straight. But if I go up any further, I'm off the graph. So I can go down 2, so negative 2 and negative 1. So I can go down 2 and left 1, down 2 and left 1, and I can get some more points that are actually on the graph. And I'm doing this because it will help me graph my inverse function. So I'm going to show you conceptually how to graph the inverse of f of x, y, in other words, inverse of y, or inverse of f of x, since y equals f of x. And anyway, we're going to first go ahead and draw the graph of y. So that's y equals 2x plus 8. Now, if you remember from the first video, we talked about that the x and y coordinates on f, and let's pick a couple of them here, 0, 8, let's pick negative 4, 0. You could pick a couple other ones in here, negative 3, 2, and negative 2, 4, and on and on. So that's y equals f of x. Now again, from the first video, we talked about that the x and y coordinates on f of x are the reverse of the x and y coordinates of f inverse of x. So if we look at y equals f inverse of x, we can just plot points. We can use these coordinates that we found here for f of x, and we can just reverse them. 0, 8 becomes 8, 0. I would love for you to be able to understand it this way instead of just memorizing how to find f of x and f inverse of x and graphing that. So we're just going to reverse all 4 of these sets of values here from f of x, and I purposely chose the x-intercept and the y-intercept for f of x because I'm noticing here I've got to include the x and y-intercepts for f inverse of x. And so let's just plot these points. So 8, 0, 0, negative 4. We're plotting the points on f inverse of x. 2, negative 3, 4, negative 2, and so on. So I didn't choose as many points, but I think we get the idea. I was going to say get the point, but that'd be lame because there's no one here listening to me here. You're just listening to me on your video. So there we go. We have y over here, and then it's harder to write y inverse. It's like y to the negative 1. So I'm going to write f of x equals 2x plus 8 up there. And then I'm going to write f inverse of x equals, well, we didn't solve for it, so let's not worry about it right now. Just f inverse of x. Didn't say to find f inverse of x, just said to graph it, so we've done that. And we know that the x-intercept here for y is negative 4, 0. The y-intercept, 0, 8. And this is kind of a cool thing. If we have an x-intercept of negative 4, 0, then we have a y-intercept of 0, negative 4 on f inverse. And the x-intercept on f inverse is really the y-intercept of f, but reversed. The coordinates are reversed. So hopefully that made sense. You'll get a chance to practice some of those when you come to class.